So hello everyone, and thank you for watching this video. My name is Alessandra Saviotti, and I am a PhD candidate at the Liverpool John Moores University. I'm also a long-term collaborator of the Associación de Arte Útil, and I'm the Toolkits research editor for the Decentralizing Political Economies platform. I'm here with Poppy Bowers, who is a curator at the Whitworth in Manchester, which is a partner of this project, Decentralising Political Economies, together with the City Lab at the Liverpool John Moores University and the Associación de Arte Útil. And Poppy is also the project coordinator and the research editor of the Decentralising Political Economies project, which for now it exists as a website and platform. So during this brief interview and conversation, I think we are going to discuss some aspects which led us to how the platform was conceived collectively. So thank you, Poppy, for being here with me today for this conversation. So I have some questions for you, if it's okay, so then we can expand a little bit on what this platform is about. The first, let's say, question or reflection that I would like to talk about with you is that one of the aims of Decentralizing Political Economies is to basically accompany the research leading to Economics the Blockbuster, which is an exhibition that is scheduled for 2023, if I'm not wrong, at the Whitworth. So I was wondering if you could say something about this decision to make visible the research process through Decentralizing Political Economies platform.
Yeah, it's a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
So as you mentioned, I am exhibition curator at the Whitworth, and I'm sort of leading the development of an exhibition that takes the theme of economics. And it starts from a very simple position of wanting to redefine economics as a set of social relations. And I guess by doing that, reclaiming economics as something that we are all part of and that we shape throughout our everyday actions and activity. And part of that redefining and reclaiming is about thinking about the activity and operations of the art gallery itself, so the economics of the art institution. And the exhibition is a very visible part of that economy. So I'm interested in recognising the mechanisms of exhibition making in this process and how the institutional operations and exhibition model can be part of this redefining and reclaiming process. So, thinking about it as something relational. So one of the opportunities that thinking offers is for us to reconsider the role of research in the curatorial process. And by making the exhibition research public and collaborative, which I can say a little bit about more in a minute, through DPE, for example, we are reframing the way in which knowledge is produced by the art institution and by whom. So, museums and galleries like the Whitworth are recognised and have long been recognised as sites where knowledge is produced. And the Whitworth as a university gallery, that is of particular importance. But exhibition research tends to happen outside of the public programme before an exhibition takes place. So although curatorial research comes out of ongoing conversations and exchanges with a range of people and contexts, it nevertheless tends to be a relatively contained and, you might say closed activity that's driven by the curator. And the moment when exhibition research meets the public is usually the day the exhibition opens, by which point the research activity has stopped. And the research has been organised, it's been edited, it's been summarised, and and it's been made stable so that it can be clearly articulated to a public for the first time in that moment of an exhibition. And in that scenario, the institution typically assumes a fixed position of knowing something and passes that knowledge on to a public. So what we want to do with DPE is not only make the research visible, but the process of the research to be open to people to participate in. And so the exhibition research is co-produced, and we plan to do that through reading groups, workshops, seminars, most of that happening online for the foreseeable, but also through the website itself, the blog, the library, through the toolkits, and use the DPE website as a platform for exchange. And so I think very broadly, making the research process visible does sort of two things, and sort of staying with the theme of decentralising. Initially, it decenters research from being something that takes place in a certain location, so the art gallery, the museum, the university, the school, and by a certain set of people, so i.e. the exhibition curator, and it creates the potential for research to take many forms. And we know that knowledge is formed in so many different ways. It's embodied, it emerges through lived experience and circumstance. It's not just formally taught. And there are many different points of entry to a subject, and there are many different ways of knowing something. And I think that open, visible process better reflects the complexity of the world in which the museum is one part of. And secondly, by carrying out the research process in public and with public, we also start to decenter the institution. So from its perceived stable position as a sort of central authorial voice, what we often refer to as the broadcasting model, to instead a model of reciprocal knowledge exchange. And I should say that isn't radical. This is, artists have been making work like this for a long time. Research methodologies as part of the curatorial and exhibition models is widely recognised and played out. But I think it's less common in large-scale museums like the Whitworth. So for us, this really is an important kind of part of shifting to a speculative, open-ended way of working, not necessarily a way of thinking, because I think we've been carrying these ideas with us, for a long time, but it in terms of the practical way in which we work, so the protocols and procedures around exhibition making, this is something, that enables us to do something quite different.
Yeah, it's actually very exciting to think about all these things that you are saying, that okay, it's not something new, because also other artists and research is more or less done like that. But the fact that a large-scale museum or institution is doing that is quite exciting, because it's somehow new. And so then and these thoughts lead me to the second question that I would like to address, and it's basically, how is the process of actually producing research tools, for instance, like the curriculum of other kind of toolkits to be used, rather than other, let's say, devices that we are mostly used to when we think about art, such as an online exhibition, for example, or an online reading group that you mentioned. So how all these, let's say, new tools are going to affect some shifts and changes of approach to the usual experience of working in a museum to deliver a certain kind of program. So you said already a little bit about it earlier, but if you perhaps would like to expand a little bit on that, I would be curious to hear.
Yeah, and I think again, it's sort of following on that notion of exchange, and the exhibition being something that's a kind of a site for exchange and relationships being made. But I think what this is doing is it's kind of offering a way to say like facilitate or support kind of self-organization or ground up kind of activity. That's something that happens way beyond the space of the gallery and beyond the realm or the kind of ideas of an exhibition, for example. and actually is about sort of thinking about how the way in which we might work through ideas or apply our, what we refer to like artistic thinking, but into sort of like everyday kind of I guess I'm trying to think of like roles, like into the idea of citizenship or into like the political life of people, and that's quite different. And so I think that's the kind of, I don't really know exactly how it's going to change the way we work yet, but we're just getting warmed up with this. So, but that is that's what excites me, is doing something that actually is about a practical application in a particular situation that's out there, whether it's in Manchester or somewhere else. For us to be part of that is something quite different.
Yeah, indeed, it's quite exciting. First to imagine and then try to make it happen. So, and then let's say that my last question would be then, how do you imagine the interaction between Decentralising Political Economies platform and the artists involved?
And again, I think this is something that will be kind of take shape as we start to work with each other. But what I like about DPE is that it is a kind of open platform, and it's collaborative, so it's sort of there to be used and taken up by artists in a way that they sort of, that helps them or helps them move through an idea or supports them. So it might be a space for an artist to kind of show something that they've been working on and to test something out. It might be to have a very long ongoing conversation around a series of interests or problems that they have around a project, for example. It might be something that engages with their work directly, their practice, but it might also be something that practically supports them as an art worker. So I think that's the two sort of general sides to this project. I mean, I could say a little bit about a couple of projects that we've started and that are already sort of going to be on the website. Just as an example of the very open way that I guess we're approaching this. So Helen Knowles is an artist who lives and works in Manchester, and she was making a series of films that look at wealth disparity, and she's particularly interested in certain market contexts, so the auction house, for example, and different communities connected to these markets. And what she was interested in creating an installation that actually has a sort of financial distribution built within it, and she wanted to do that through cryptocurrency and using the blockchain technology. But she's never worked with this before, and so what we did is we worked together with her and hosted a number of workshops that were sort of like exploratory workshops that first of all introduced what blockchain was, because it's quite a difficult thing to understand. And so we had blockchain builders, we had designers, we had people from the business school, we had some artists, so it's a mixture of different people around the table to not just think through the design and operation of this machine that Helen wanted to build, but also to think about the ethical implications of somebody paying to watch an artwork and then the distribution of that money to all the people involved in the project, where you draw the line as to the level of who you term as involved and who you term as not involved. So then there's questions of labour and time, and so it was a really brilliant set of discussions. And so what you see on the website is the publication that was made that went alongside the first showing of that work at Arbite Gallery in London, with a number of different texts in it, installation shots, but also a text by Irene, who's the curator at Future Everything, who were one of the collaborators on the project, who talks through the process and that workshop process. so that's like an example of how so far, decentralizing political economies is sort of there as a place to sort of document and track some of these conversations and some of this this sort of working. Another example would be the Stockholm-based duos Golden and Senaby, who have a sort of long-term relationship with Ismail Ertek, who's a lecturer in banking at Manchester Business School, which is part of the university here. And they have been talking back and forth about the role of melancholia in the sort of financial crisis and the aftermath of the financial crisis. And of course, the Whitworth holds a number of prints by the engraver Albrecht Dürer, and we hold a copy of the of Melancholia that he made in the early 16th century, and an iconic image. And so we invited Golden and Senaby to sort of formalise some of those thoughts that they had around a proposal, sort of responding to that work. I invited them to write something for the website that could be perhaps a bit more speculative than perhaps it would have been otherwise. And so it's quite a sort of like a piece of short fiction that they've written about their proposal of sort of reanimating the museum's stored collection. So thinking about how to reactivate the financial value of a museum stored collection, which right now, given the sort of the economic climate that we're in at the moment in the arts, the sort of alternative thinking and new speculative thinking around how we think about different funding models for a museum is pretty needed. So that's like, where I guess it's the website's being used as a point of conversation.
Which I think it's really at least for me, is the most exciting way of using that, because I think that rather than conceiving something that just becomes a sort of repository of research and knowledge and text and audio and video, is something in development. So again, as I was saying, the interesting part for me in working in collaboration with the museum, which usually experience the work of art or like in a different way, as like a sort of finished object or finished process that is there to be perceived. It's slightly changed when we approach decentralizing political economies. So thank you very much for expanding on your perspective as a curator in the museum and also as a research editor of Decentralizing Political Economies, and looking forward to see what is going to be developed more.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to more conversations.